Good evening, folks. This is the Curriculum and Evaluation Committee meeting. It's Monday, May 21st at 6:02, and we are in the North Boardroom here at Nashua High School North. And, oops, better get the book open here. Miss Van Twyver's here, Miss Raymond?
Here.
Miss Timmons?
She had a family emergency. She called me this afternoon.
I thought we made an adjustment to this. I thought Miss...
Yes.
Is she on the board, or is she on this committee or not?
Yes, she's the alternate. They changed it on the website, the contact list. There was some other list, they forgot to change it. I called central office and talked to
Oh, I thought she was put on as a voting member, not an alternate.
No, an alternate.
alternate.
Okay.
Yeah. I failed to follow all of that. Did we say that Mrs. Porter is now
Thank
an
you,
alternate?
ma'am. I was trying to think of her name. It's Tabo, yeah, she is an alternate,
Okay.
and she's taking Mr. Garino's place, and Ms. Timmons evidently is still on the committee. And she is not here, she's absent. And we also have Dr. McKinney, who's going to enlighten us tonight, and we have Ms. Hohensee. Okay, so on tonight's agenda, what, did I miss something? Oh,
Did you say Mrs.?
I'm sorry, Dottie.
Okay. I thought I made my entrance.
Yeah, you did, Dottie, and I'm sorry about that. Every once in a while, I have to forget somebody so that people can remind me how old I am. Okay, so tonight we have on our agenda some April meeting question follow-up on some of the questions that were raised during the April meeting. We're going to talk about the textbook replacement schedule and then the summer reading program for 2018. So, Dr. McKinney, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So we'll go backwards to go forward. So based on my notes from the last meeting, and I apologize, I didn't get a chance to read the minutes, but these are some of the questions that I made note of from our last meeting. So beginning with OrenGillingham, how many years has it been in the district? Based on a meeting I had the end of last week, about 5 to 10 years. How many teachers in the district? You can see there are 5 teachers currently, 3 at the elementary, 1 at the middle, 1 at the high school. We met with an outside vendor who coordinates the training for this, and we're working to put together another cohort of teachers that would be trained. Some have already reached out to her that are classroom teachers, some are special educators, some ELL teachers, so that's something we're looking into for next year, that group can meet and not do the full certification, but do a large portion of it. It would take them basically 2 years to complete their certification to get OG certified, because there is a large practicum that's involved and requires supervision. These teachers in both title and non-title schools, and then it asked how many students, I believe at the middle school level, and there's 1 student getting OrenGillingham at the middle school level and 1 at high school. So that was based on I apologize, my scratch notes from the last time.
Dr. McKinney,
Yes, ma'am.
could you refresh my memory on the OrenGillingham program?
So OrenGillingham is a specialized multi-sensory reading program that would be used for a select number of students in Tier 3. There's only probably 10 to 15 trainers in the state that can provide the training, and then we only have 5 teachers. So it's a small number of students, mostly students that would be in that Tier 3 that require specialized instruction from a qualified educator in special education.
That explains why there's not as many teachers trained in the program and as many students, because I was wondering about that, 1 middle school and 1 high school. But it's for all 3 levels of the schooling system.
K12 in terms of?
Yep.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
The
Anybody else have any questions on that?
Could I just add one thing?
Yep.
So that cohort we're talking about would be focused mainly at the middle school level, because that's where all these students are going to end up. And then after that, we would work on a rollout towards some of the other levels, like elementary school. Basically, obviously, by high school, they should be remediated by then, so we're trying to build up our capacity in the middle school. And then we're also doing a training for all teachers, because some of the not training or strategies, I would say, that's in OrenGillingham are good for all teachers. So during the Summer Kindergarten Institute, there'll be a portion of the day devoted to this. And then during our professional in-service days next year, there'll be some OrenGillingham / best practices in literacy professional development offered for teachers.
Okay, did anybody have any questions? Any further questions? Okay, so the next one is science standards.
Science standards. If I could just go to the last two bullets here. So I believe there was a question on when the next date for science standards revision from the DOE would be, and that would be 2024. And then along with, so the SBAC, we no longer have SBAC, we have SAS, Student Assessment System. The contract that's in place for science runs until 2021 with an option for a 3-year extension after that to 2024. We've learned that the scores for science that the students took this year in grades 3 through 8, it's a new test, so the questions and the scores won't be out until later in the fall because they're going to do some benchmarking. And a number of our teachers, and including myself, are going to a training this July that the state is offering around the new SAS. So currently, what's included in that assessment is science and engineering practices, disciplinary core ideas, and cross-cutting concepts. So our students are currently being assessed in a way we are just beginning to understand, and it's not completely aligned to our teaching. So if I could, I just want to speak to this a little further and then come back to these other two bullets, if I may.
Well, yep. I just have one question before you do that. Its scores will not be out for the science SAS until September. I want to know why it takes them so long to put these tests out. I was looking online at the reports on the State Department of Education, and the latest scores we have on testing, 2015. Now it's 2018, and it should be 2 more years, I think, that should be posted there. I don't know why it takes them so long to get these scores out to us. Can you offer any guidance on that?
I can't. Are you looking at the state website, or where were you looking?
State Department of Education, under the reports, the assessment and then reports. And, I mean, not much help to me as far as, observing test scores. 2015, 14, 15, it's pretty old, but it would be nice if they could get them out sooner, that's for sure. So go ahead and, does anybody, well, yes. Ms.
Thank you,
Raymond.
Ms. Van Twyver. Can you explain a little bit what you mean by benchmarking?
Yeah, I was wondering
Because
about that.
I don't know what that word means in this context.
Since the state is no longer part of the Smarter Balance Assessment Consortium, they've developed their own test. And by doing that, they have to determine the proficiency levels and basically 4, 3, 2, 1, and the raw scores and how they convert into that. So they need to do basically a baseline year for everything and provide training. So this year is basically starting anew with a new assessment, and they're going to benchmark the scores, meaning they're going to let us know the proficiency levels. If a student scores a 38, that means proficiency, or a 39 means advanced, that kind of piece. So that's a new piece right now. Before in the consortium, when you're an SBAC, everything is already set and done for you because you have to obviously be part of that when you're in the consortium.
Dr. McKinney, I think I remember correctly that you said that the state will be putting out a bulletin or something that will show the differences between the SBAC and the SAS so that we can have some kind of idea how the scores are going. We had this problem with the kneecap, and when we went to SBACs, every 4 years we have this, and it's very hard to track if you're making a lot of progress over the years if you keep changing the test. So did I remember you correctly saying that, or am I foggy in my head?
That's the last I heard from the state, that we'll get a, I don't want to say the wrong term, but some sort of comparison between SBAC and SAS for math and literacy. for this year, yes.
So, are you expecting to hear about that in July when you go for this training on SAS?
It's certainly possible. I'm hoping that most of our schools will be finished testing by June, so we'll have some idea before the end of the school year. But again, when we get the information from the state, I'm happy to forward it to the board.
Thank you. So now, anything else before he goes on to the first couple of bullets?
So if we could just take a step back. In the state, the New Hampshire College Career Ready Science Standards, which are the next-gen science standards, were adopted by the state of New Hampshire in 2016 after 2 years of research by the State Board of Education. So they would have been in place from 2016, so almost 2 years. So as you know, this past year, our middle school has been a part of next-gen science training and have been invested in a science pilot. So some of the materials that you have in front of you include student and teacher comments about student-driven instruction. And along with one other piece that just came to my attention today, so I apologize it wasn't in the packet, but teacher feedback on middle school science resources. So this group, led by our STEM coach, has spent this year investigating 5 resources. And they've narrowed it down, as you can see, from the number of pilot teachers that are participating on the first side to the teachers requesting additional information on a resource. They've come to a place where they've narrowed the list from 5 down to 2. And they're asking to propose that we extend the science resource pilot for another year. And what I brought with me as well on the slideshow here is an example of next-gen science standards in action, how it shifts the instruction from being teacher-led, being in front of the classroom like a lecture, to the students owning the learning. So it's student-driven. They come up with a question board, which you can see right here. They're the ones doing the brainstorming and collaboration in small groups. They're the ones who are designing some of the experiments and reporting out on their results. You can see in the teacher comments that the change of practice, for example, put them out of their comfort zone, but they're learning. Students are participating more. It takes a little bit longer, but the students are talking with others and helping explain the ideas. It's just good teaching. It's making them think deeper, excuse me. There's more rigor. And even the student comments, you aren't going back to the old way, are you? Or I have another idea, so can we talk more tomorrow? So this is an area I'm asking for the committee's support in looking to extend this for a year going forward, that we can continue this work and narrow it down there to these 2 resources and do a little more professional development and a little more due diligence in selecting the right resource for our teachers and our kids.
So it's just the middle school that is questioning the resource for the science standards? What about the elementary and the high school?
So that's a 2-part question. Yes, the middle school is in looking at a pilot for a resource, but the Science Steering Committee and basically the teachers K-12 are looking for this committee's support in moving towards aligning our curriculum to the next-gen science standards. So like I talked about with the SAS, our kids are being assessed in this right now, and we're not completely aligned, and we're not teaching that way. So it's hard for our kids to be prepared if we're not utilizing all the resources we could. So while the middle school would be looking for a resource, the other 2 levels, elementary and high school, would align to those standards and then work to shift their instruction to become more student-centered as opposed to teacher-led and teacher-directed.
So we can expect not to be excited about the new test scores for the science test this year, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So don't anybody expect miracles.
Well, can I just add, it's not just us, it's the entire state. They've changed the whole thing for kids, and it's very different from what NECAP used to be. I think we had a good routine going down and understanding how NECAP was put together and the questions. This was completely different. We didn't really have an opportunity to prepare as well as if we could align our curriculum, do some PD, shift instruction, things like that.
I was terribly excited about the teacher and student comments, and particularly the one about the English teacher who said, "What did you do in your class today? The kids are so excited." When I was in the public speaking group, I did many, many workshops, and one of the tools that we always used was asking them questions and getting people involved. And once they're involved in that discussion, then they become engaged, or however we call it today. And it really is the best way, I think, of training people. So I was very encouraged by some of these comments that were here. Does anybody, yes, Ms. Porter?
What does it look like at the elementary level when you're aligning the curriculum? How is that happening? Does it look like the old committees that we had for science and social studies where they met with the, and came up with units? Is it that type of thing, or how is that?
You mean steering committees?
It was curriculum, the principals who are part-time curriculum people.
Yes.
Would have a committee come
Oh, I see.
together and make the units that we
Yes.
had. Is that what this looks like?
So that would be, yes, so going back to the UBD units.
Yes.
Revising them, aligning them to the new standards.
Okay.
And frankly, addressing some of the inequities and the inconsistencies across K12. And using some of the good practices that our teachers at the middle school have been exposed to in the PD, and then moving that down to the,
So some of those units may change grades sometimes?
they
They
might.
might, so some of those things would be redistributed in materials?
Sure.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, good, thank you.
Ms. Raymond?
Thank you. So you said the steering committee is looking for our support on moving forward. So I have a couple questions on that. One, when do we need to vote in order to make something like that happen if the board decides they want to include, to extend the middle school? And then what exactly is it that the steering committee needs from the board in order to roll it out for high school and elementary school? Because I would hate to not have this on an agenda until September, and then it's too late, or it takes too, I don't know, what's the time frame?
All right, can we do your questions in order? Can we just do one at a time?
So my question is really, you have a proposal here to have the middle school science resource pilot be extended. I assume the board would need to vote on whether or not we are going to want to do that as a board. So the question is when? What's the time frame for needing to have an answer?
I think he's expecting a motion tonight.
That would help, at least by the end of the school year, because for the middle school, it does require purchasing some more of these resources, these two for teachers, so that we have it on all three middle schools. And also the second part, for the steering committees, for the science steering committee, K12, by the end of the school year, having approval from the board to align our science curriculum to the next gen science standards would help in planning for next year. Both our steering committee meetings, we probably will have 4 next year, along with professional development, both on the in-service days and the early release days.
Okay, so since there's two upcoming Board of Ed meetings before the school year is officially over, that would be like now, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Dr. McKinney, something that Ms. Raymond mentioned kind of tricked are you just saying that the elementary and the high school are going to continue going forward, and that just the middle school is going to be still in the pilot sense? Or
So
are you
just to
considering?
clarify, I would hope for a motion or support from this committee to, 1, align our science curriculum to next gen science standards, and 2, for the middle school to continue a pilot looking for resources. They're in need of a resource there, but if we align our curriculum K12, both with the materials and the strategies, there may be other levels that need additional resources like the high school or elementary, but that work can't happen until we have approval to align to the curriculum. So that's what they're looking for, so they can plan their meetings over next year to do those things.
So the chair would entertain a motion to help this out. Ms. Raymond?
I have one further question on that. Should we go forward with this? It sounds like there are textbooks and other resources is that information is that information about costs in tonight's presentation? And two, is it in our budget?
One, no, it's not in here. Two, there would be some limited funds to address that. Frankly, I need the support of the steering committee to address the challenges that we have. For example, at some elementary grades, they pass the kits around between the grade level, so they can only wait until one kit is done before the next one starts. And some of those kits haven't been replenished in a period of time. So replenishing the kits, and then also maybe purchasing enough so that every classroom teacher has what they need and they can be teaching within their own classroom and not relying on, for example, one teacher finishing rocks and minerals so that kit can come over to my classroom so I could start that unit. There have been some incidents where students move around the district, and just based on the timing, they may see the same unit more than once. So I'd like to get to a place where everybody has what they need and they can deliver their instruction with all the materials there. So I need the steering committee's help to do some of that assessment, sit at grade levels, tell me what you have, what you need, what you don't have, and then make a plan going forward.
Ms. Zoden.
Thank you. Dr. McKinney, who will be delivering the PD?
Our STEM coach, Mrs. Janisek, at the middle school, and then a number of the teachers that were trained at Next Gen Science Standards this year. We had a cohort go through there. So that would be the group that would help out the most.
And they will be helping the elementary, they will be running the PD elementary and the PD for the high school?
Mainly the elementary, along with John Forrest, who got trained as well at the elementary.
And has the science administrator, the part-time principal and science person, have they been working on aligning the next generation science with the elementary curriculum?
Mm-hmm.
They have.
So John Forrest, who's at Broad Street half-time, and the curriculum coordinator for both science and social studies, has been working closely with Lisa and went to all the same trainings that Lisa went to this year. So they're all on the same page.
So do you have a hard copy of what they've accomplished so far?
For attending the training or the steering committee?
No, for the work they've done aligning some of the elementary science to the next generation science.
We haven't done that part yet. That was part of the motion I'm saying for tonight of doing that next year, aligning to next gen. Right now, we're not completely there.
So the science person has been training?
He's attended the same training with the middle school teachers on next gen and how to make it happen in the classroom with some looking similar to what you're seeing on the board here.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Ms. Raymond.
Thank you. Well, I'll move to align our K12 curriculum to the next gen science standards.
Is there a second?
Second?
Any discussion? Yes, Ms. Raymond.
I would just like to put out there that I support the next gen science standards. However, I would like some information at the next board meeting or whenever this comes to be discussed again about costs so that we can be as informed as possible.
I can do that,
Did you
yes.
get that point about the
Got it
cost?
right here.
Okay. Just checking. Ms. Porter.
How long do you think it will take to complete the alignment?
Oh, the alignment part, I think we could do next year and know our strengths and weaknesses and where some gaps are. Remediating those would probably take another year.
So by the end of next school year, that should be done?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thanks.
Is there any more discussion? If not, are you ready for the vote? Okay, let's hear it. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The ayes have it, and this will be forwarded to the full board for their approval at the next meeting of the board. Is there anything else on this topic, sir?
Just 1 second, please.
That's all right. Give me a chance to write something here, too.
Point of order.
Yes, ma'am.
I think that he was also looking for a motion to continue the pilot for a year. with the middle school on
Yes, you're
those
absolutely
textbooks.
right.
He asked for two different things.
Yep, sorry about that. Ms. Raymond?
Thank you. I move to extend the middle school science resource pilot through the 2018-2019 school year.
Second?
Raymond and Porter. Any questions? Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Ayes have it, and that also will be sent to the full board. Thank you, Ms. O'Hensy, for keeping me on my toes here, or sort of.
Madam Chair, can I make a comment, please?
Yes.
Ms. Raymond, just in comment to your question about cost, on page 2 of this textbook resources, Next Gen Science Standards Materials for Middle School, there's a quote there for obtaining the materials, and those last two that were selected by the middle school teachers to have them at the 3 middle schools next year, one from Activate Learning and one from HMH Dimensions.
That's the 80,000?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else on your review of last meeting's questions?
So now I'd like to go to, it kind of ties into the first bullet there, but it's just a review of textbook and resources from K12. So this is the document that was in place when I arrived in July, and I asked my office to go through and highlight the areas of materials that were purchased through the curriculum budget that could be confirmed through a purchase order. So Ms. Morris went through and highlighted these areas for you, and I just want to make note of one error that was brought to my attention during, we had a social studies steering committee meeting this afternoon, which is, I guess it's your second to the last page at the bottom. Social studies, world history, $75,000 actually paid in 2015, 2016. The high school teachers are just questioning whether that might have been a middle school purchase or it was accidentally duplicated. So I just want to bring that to your attention that I have to go back to the office and check on that.
Yeah,
So,
Dr. McKinney, you've lost me. Where are you talking? On middle school?
So page 3.
1, 2, that's high school, right?
Yep.
Okay,
If you follow that row across for social studies under 17, 18,
yeah,
the middle school teachers were questioning that highlighted purchase, so I just have to go back and check with Ms. Morris
okay.
if that was accidentally duplicated or if it was, the middle school teachers are saying it wasn't at the middle school level.
I have a question
So, go ahead, ma'am.
all those that aren't highlighted were not done, or they just didn't come out of the curriculum budget?
Could you give me an example?
Well, like
So
ELA on the first page, assessment, $2,733 for, was that not done, or was it just didn't come out of the curriculum budget?
This
Although I don't know where else it would have come from, but,
this one right here, 1112, LLI 21-4.
yep. 21.4. No. All right, let me,
The same one you said,
Yep.
right there, two numbers.
he said 21.4. On 2011, 2012, ELA, 2,733 for an assessment. Was that actually done out of another budget, or was it just not done at all, not bought at all?
That I couldn't answer. I think Ms. Morris had a challenge going back and finding as much
All right,
information
so
as
we
she
can
could.
assume that anything that's just black and not highlighted, it's questionable whether we actually bought that or not.
I can do my best to ask her and do some more research, but she only goes as far back. I think the system that she's in, Lawson, or is it Munis? The PO system only goes back so far.
Okay. Well, it's just like under science in the middle school in 2011, 2012, iPads and projectors of $200,000. I mean, that's an awful lot of money not to know whether we spent it or not. But
Where's that one again?
on the middle school page, which is page 2 for me, down under science.
Oh, I see, yep.
Under 2011, 2012.
I'm pretty confident that one happened, but
I hope so. I hope nobody
well,
ran off with the
I've seen the
200,000.
iPad, so I will, I'll
Yeah.
double check.
Well, I mean, I just want to understand that, this is something that we need to look at to fund, or whether it's been done and we just don't know it's been done.
Mm-hmm.
Ms. Porter?
Were any of these things purchased with Title I funds? Could that,
It's certainly possible.
I know we get a lot of things through Title I funding, so maybe that
Yep.
would, yeah.
I can double check. I think also one of the other challenges is at some of the high schools, they've made purchases to supplement some of the things that the teachers needed that may not have come through the curriculum budget. So that may be another something to look into. So just coming full circle, the next step for this document, the end of last week, the head teachers had met. They reviewed their needs with the two principals, and they're crafting a new piece for textbook replacement based on the needs of the head teachers' requests going forward. So I didn't have a chance to put that in the packet before then, but that'll be the next piece along with the other part that we had talked about of a program review or a curriculum review of our content areas.
Head teachers are just high school? Or do we have head
Oh,
teachers?
yes, ma'am.
All right, so head teachers' requirements. So the lady at the Ed Council, her request, she was complaining about books not being for her science class, or her Spanish class?
She did have a meeting with Ms. Fitzpatrick, and her requests were also forwarded to the head teacher.
Okay. So those things will be taken care of. Red requirements for high school. Now, does this address the fact, I mean, we hear that our textbooks are so out of date. Do you feel that way, that they're very out of date? And
I've only
middle
seen,
school and high school? I don't know about elementary, but I'm more concerned about middle school and high school, whether they have up-to-date materials.
so I have seen only one content area present theirs, and theirs, their list was based both on the date and the urgency of having those textbooks. And head teacher did a nice job even color coding it for me. So the code reds will be kind of in next year's budget, and then next year's orange, and then the following year.
Okay, any other questions? Yes, Ms. Raymond?
I have two questions. One, when will you give us the update on what the head teachers have identified as urgent needs, like not so urgent and slightly less urgent?
I should be able to have that for our June meeting.
Okay. And then my second question is, there's a couple of items on the high school where it says, like geometry, 75,000 not purchased this year. Physical science, 60,000 not purchased this year. Under almost the geometry, it looks like it was purchased the next year. The physical science has an arrow, but it's not listed as a planned purchase in 2018. Are you waiting for the reports from the head teachers to decide, or is that something that is automatically going to be on the next year?
That's the part I'm waiting to see. So this is one of the areas where I did see their list. So if that was the money that was put aside, I could either encourage them to spend all the money for physical science books, or they could use that allotment of money to meet the urgent needs in other areas. So if they had other books that were more out of date, or they wanted to split the cost, that might be something we look into. But I haven't had a chance to look at the whole document from both high schools.
Could this be held up because of the science standards? I mean, physical science, you wouldn't want to buy the books unless they're certain about the testing and whether the test is correct and it's going to be covered.
Well, it's certainly possible. They had a meeting towards the end of the week, and I just didn't get a chance to get it, to put into this packet. So Ms. Fitzpatrick was out of the district, and the two high school principals after their head teacher meeting, so they just have to compile it all together. So I could do that for the next meeting, though.
Okay. Anything else? You're looking for any kind of motion from us, or?
So I guess in the end of looking at all this, part of what I'm trying to do is get an understanding of what the needs are, and then put together a plan going forward, because all the subject areas want a little bit of something, and there are needs across the district. So how do we meet those needs in the best way possible, while also looking to understand our curriculum? What are the results we're getting? What are the areas of weakness? And how can we supplement that? So while textbooks are a part of that and the whole curriculum, it's not the only piece too. So I guess that's what I brought this. I know there's been discussion about it, and that's kind of the plan going forward, of both looking at the needs, doing an assessment, looking at the data results, and then making a plan going forward.
So that will be in June. You feel that you'll be comfortable enough to give us information in June?
I will do my best, yes.
Okay. All right, so I just want to make sure we get that on the agenda if that's the case. Yes, Ms. Oden?
Thank you. I have one concern. I have heard from more than one person that the Scott Forsman reading the basals at some schools are being thrown out. Have you heard anything of that nature?
So just so I hear you, the basals, you mean the little readers that the kids use?
No, the big hard books that,
Oh, the textbook
that's
itself,
the
yeah, the anthology,
anthologies
yep.
are being thrown out.
I haven't heard that, but I can look into it.
Okay,
Anthology.
thank you.
Yep.
Yes, Ms. Porter?
I have a question on the elementary school science, the National Geographic book bins. Are the books in there, do they come prepackaged, or is that something that can be aligned to the standards for that particular grade?
I'd have to do some more research about.
Because I know sometimes when you order a prepackaged thing, they're beautiful books, they're gorgeous, but they might not be appropriate to your grade level, the topic. So I'm just wondering if those are things that the science committee can choose the titles for each grade level, or is it a prepackaged thing that's coming?
So could you just repeat your two questions so I can look into it for you?
Let me think about it. Okay, so the National Geographic book bins, do they come prepackaged, or is that something that you can order by the title for the specific grade level?
Okay.
And if they are prepackaged, is there some sort of a redistribution to the grade level they would most closely align to?
Got it.
Go ahead.
Okay, so now I'm looking at the math, the Eureka math. So the printing, that's $70,000 for printing. So do teachers have a choice on how they want their printing? Because are they getting a booklet for the whole thing? Or are they, sometimes you might not need everything. I know that when we were doing it ourselves, we could kind of pick and choose the parts that we were most needing at a particular time. And as time goes on, you may have some copies already that you don't need again. Is that customized in any way, or is it just everybody is getting the same printing all the time?
A little bit of both. So this quote that's in here, or this allotment, is for K8. So this would include the middle school part. All classroom teachers K5 get the module student workbooks.
Oh, they're still getting the workbooks?
Yes.
So are those being printed here, or are we buying?
We have them printed at a printer.
Right.
So we collected bids and we went with the lowest one. We actually saved some money from last year's bid.
Okay.
So they all get the workbooks, and then what we've noticed this year at the elementary level, there's been an increased cost, or what would you say, frequency of copying, both from the Lucy Calkins writing unit and the exit slips, the sprints, the mid and end of unit modules, all at the elementary level. So included in here is some of the printing for covering some of those, so we don't have the same wear and tear that we would have at the building level. And lastly, our pacing now, at only our second year, our teachers are getting through everything.
Right,
So there is a need to have the
Okay.
entire curriculum to them.
So do they have a choice of getting those materials bound or unbound? Are they always bound?
I forget what they call it, but it's all
Well, it's all
standard.
like a book, you
Yep.
know, so if they wanted to take okay, I'm just thinking sometimes you want to tear things out and,
The only part that isn't put together in those workbooks, it would be the exit slips,
Okay,
the
and the
sprints,
tests,
and
and
the
the
assessments.
sprints.
Yep.
Okay, all
But
right.
some schools or grades opted to have those printed for them already to save time.
So the homework would be in there too?
The homework they do on their own, only because some teachers don't always give the homework that's assigned. They do
That's
like
what-
2
okay.
days prior, so the kids can do it independently as opposed to teaching them something new and then not being ready for it. So
So there are some options in that printing to have it
Yep.
customized to the way the teacher wants to use it?
yes.
Okay.
Ms. Sad is our elementary math coordinator for that, and she's done a nice job coordinating.
Okay, good, thank you.
Anything else? Okay, go on to the next topic, which is the summer reading 2018.
Yeah, so I'm excited. The Nashua Public Library came and asked if we could partner together to do something systematic and district-wide, K12 for all the literacy activities that happen in the city this year. So they came together with a structure that kind of meets the needs of both elementary, actually all 3 levels, elementary, middle, and high school. From the structure here, you can see some of the challenges they have to award for some of the kids, how they'll do some of their recording, incentives for them. They have some weekly theme activities to promote literacy over the summer. They have a musician who's going to lead some songwriting, an author's visit, a talent show. All these materials have been put together both in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. You may have seen the flyers around the district. They have a family concert. And for my piece at the elementary school, they've worked closely with the assistant principals in scheduling presentations where the children's librarian came over to talk to the kids and present. And in the end, we'll get some information back to the district. If you look on page 2, the library will provide the school district with the following data to start the school year. How many participants by school, how many participated by grade, the total number of minutes read. So this is the first year we've done this to promote something, and I'm just excited that we have the library partnering with us and celebrating literacy, but also bringing kids back to the focus of reading in the summer, even when the weather's nice. Especially when the weather's nice, yes.
Well, I think this is wonderful. How is it going to compete with our summer program, school program?
So this is optional. This is for all students, but it's not a summer school program. You don't have to enroll. It's just a means to keep track of, for example, some schools would do a reading challenge or do their own thing as opposed to 12 or 15 schools doing 12 to 15 different things. They have one understanding of where to go if you're going to read books over the summer, suggested titles, how to record your reading either online or on paper pencil, and try to read so many minutes over the course of the summer and earn some incentives like free books, free coupons. They have weekly raffles. There's going to be a party at the end. So movie passes, ice cream cones, rock climbing, etc. So
Sounds pretty good. Now, I hate to ask that question, but is there any money involved from our operating budget?
no, the library's been very generous in working. They've applied for some grants, but they came to us with the idea. They've worked closely with our reading specialists, and they've been great partners. So I'm excited to see what the first year brings.
Every year, though, the district puts out a summer reading list. I think it was some lady from the high school that does it. I want to say, Dottie, do you know the lady's name from Susan O'Rourke? I think that was her name. I don't know if she's the one to do it, but I've always thought I would take up that as my summer reading program, but haven't quite yet. Maybe this year I will. But I'd like to see that happen again, too.
Okay, and just tell me a little bit more. I know who Ms.
Just
Rourke
a
is.
reading list from
Okay.
grades, recommended books to read for the summer, grades K12.
Yeah, and that usually goes home with them at the end of the year.
Yeah.
It's a great list.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
All right, I can
Just
check.
want to make sure that happens again this year. I'm sure it
Sure.
will, but Ms. Raymond?
Thank you. I can just say that I'm very excited about this. I had 2 kids come home after the presentation, and each has written on our big family wall calendar which days and which activities that we will all be going to the library. So that's pretty cool. Does this replace the library's usual summer reading program, or is it in addition to their usual summer reading program? Because in the past, they've had a summer reading challenge where children could pick out their own books and keep track of them, and then when you hit a certain number, you get like a sticker or something. I don't remember what all the prizes are. So is this going to be in addition to that, or to replace that program entirely?
I could be wrong, but I'll double check, but it does sound like it's replacing that and just taking what they're doing and putting it across the whole city and across the district, K-12.
Great.
Yes, Ms. Porter?
I just want to say how great our public library is, and those librarians are amazing, and they are so open to coming to schools. If you call up and invite them, they're there, and they do a phenomenal job, and it's not just this year, it's been historically. They are a real resource, and I think this is a great way to get kids used to reading in the summer and going to the library, getting used to everything that's there. It's just it's a phenomenal place, a great resource for our community.
I know that when I moved up here 35 years ago, that was the biggest impression that the city made on me was the library.
Yeah.
We had a music department and everything, artwork. It is a wonderful, wonderful resource. And it's free. Anything else? Well, I guess we have exhausted our topics then. So next June, right? We're going to have data. You're going to talk about data for us, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Any sneak previews?
I'm not
Can
at
you-
liberty to say, no, it's
Okay,
highly confidential.
okay. Very good. So what we did tonight, we're going to recommend to the board that we align our science standards to the NGSS and also extend the resource pilot for the middle school. Okay?
Yes, please.
Okay, so that'll go forward. That'll be in the, on the next agenda. If there's nothing else, the chair would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn?
Thank you, Ms. Porter.
Second.
Okay. Raymond, we are adjourned. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Seems ridiculous for 3. Okay, all those opposed? Good, we were joined at 6:50, keeping to under 1 hour.